Mats on and around the ears. We're going to take a look at mats by the ear canal opening outside and by the ear leather. Mats around the ears, behind the ears, under the ears by the opening, and matted ear hair in the ear canal. Now, how do they look like? This image shows you mats on the ears by the ear canal opening. As you can see, this puppy has a massive surface of matted hair under the ear canal opening. It was, if I remember well, because of the doggy had an ear infection and they were using prescription ear wash from the vet, and they did not trim the hair around the ear canal. So whenever the doggy has ear infection, I highly recommend to get the area cleaned up for the treatment, because depending on what kind of medication the veterinarian gives you, then it's going to mess up the ear and it's going to aggravate the scratching and itching around the doggy and makes it harder to heal. So I wish all the vets would have a groomer on site, or get the information out there that, hey, the doggy really needs the hair around the ear canal opening trimmed shorter in those cases. Better yet, to prevent this happening by keeping it well maintained and short. And it would be very, very helpful if you could get a shorter trim for your doggy as a prevention, but especially in those cases when the doggy has a reinfection and you have to use ear wash and medication in there. So this is the tricky, serious thick mat. This is how it looks like. Mat on the ears on the outer side. Now this poor puppy's mom was not really suspecting that something is going on with the doggy's ears. And I was not at first either, because if you take a look at the doggy's ears from the outside, it looks perfectly brushed out. But they were using a brush which had very short pins. That means they were not working on the full length and thickness of the hair on the ears, which ended up in a big ginormous bunch of mat in the lower 2/3 of the ear. If you take a look at the second image, you can see that how tight the mat is. You can see the skin and you can move the ear hair away, and it's just one big bunch of craziness. If you take a look at the bottom left one, you can see that I removed the hair partially, and that you can see the bunches, how tight they are on the edge of the ear. The lighter colored gray parts are the ones I mean, and it was just misery for poor doggy. On the bottom right one, you see that after I removed the mat completely, the doggy's ear is free, and it was that tightly matted close up to the skin. I used one of my smallest blades, so it's something like 2-3 millimeters of hair on the doggy's ear, which is really not much, but poor thing really needed that to get done, because that they can get really, really tight and super uncomfortable in that very sensitive part of the ear. Mats on the ears on the outer side. Again, this is from a different hair colored dog. You can see on the left one how tight the mats are. Again, it doesn't, whenever the coat looks like on the top left, and it's the same way throughout the length up until the skin, it's perfectly brushed out. But if you take a look at this one on the left, you can see just the same thing as you saw with the sheepadoodle here, that on the top right, it's tightly matted. So the thing you see here is exactly the same thing. I had to make a short trim because it was way too tight to open it up. Another magic thing which I found, or a tricky spot I found on doggies, is whenever the doodle moms skip to put their hands under the ears. I mean, the previous part can be prevented with that technique as well, but this one is a serious cause or symptom of that lack of putting the hand under the ear whenever you're brushing the doggy. So what can we do? Or what's happening in this image? So if you take a look at the top left, you see the same tight mats. On the top right one, you see after the removal of the mats, and the mats were running around the edge of the ear leather, as those are the leftovers on the bottom two images. And you can see how crazy matted those were. So they just kept their shape. I was able to remove them in a way that they kept their shape, so they look like ears, but I had to remove only the edge of the ear in the middle. They were brushing the doggy out from the inside and also from the outside of the ear, but they were not using long enough pins, and they did not put their hands underneath the ears, and they did not go deep enough. So they did not reach that tiny layer by the ear leather. So they ended up with a doggy with very special looking ears from the inside. A good thing the doggy had enough hair that I was able to cover this up on the outside, so you could not see it unless someone was pointing it out to you and opening up the ear to see what's going on. So it's very, very important to see what is there, what is going on by the ear leather, to avoid crazy shaves happening to your doggy, because oftentimes when they develop at some point, at some level, then they're gonna join and they're gonna get the doggy will scratch them and it's gonna the scratching will make the mats even bigger. So the bigger they are, of course, the more significant and the more visible they will be. So it's good to keep an eye out for these guys. Mats around the ears, behind the ears. This is an amazing part as well. If you take a look at the top left one, you see basically nothing because the doggy's ear hair meeting with the doggy's hair on the neck will cover up everything, especially in case the doggy has a lot of hair on the top, and that will come down in that spot as well. So what can we do? We need to move the ear in a way that we get access to the spot behind the ear. So the way I like to do it is I hold the doggy's tip of the ear and holding it closer to the tip of the nose, basically bringing it forward. That way I open up the area back there and you can reach it with a brush and comb and take care of that. And in this scenario, in this case, you can see that the doggy had a big bunch of tight mat by that spot. In the middle image, you can see the doggy's mat after removal. It became very short, very short. I use clippers for this specific spot because it's much safer than using shears. On the right image, you can see a very similar matted bunch, but this doggy is wet. And whenever doggies are wet, then it's easier to see them. It's easier to find the mats. However, since the doggy is wet, then the mat will be bigger. So whenever we are trimming hair off of the doggy while they are wet and find mats and trim them off, we're gonna probably remove more hair than we would have in case the doggy was dry. So whenever you are on a mat hunt, you are better off with a dry dog and find the mats on a dry doggy, and you can save more hair by doing the trim on a dry dog. And fun stuff, meeting more and more of new clients, especially after winter time, that the doggy's ear hair gets matted. You can see the doggy's ear canal there, and you can see a big bunch of lighter colored matted ear hair in there. One reason is you don't have to brush this area. One reason is oftentimes when doggies get a spa day in a busy facility, ear hair removal or ear hair maintenance will be skipped because it takes time and it takes a really still dog, and they just don't do it or forget it or whatnot. So in case your doggy goes to the groomer, it's great to keep an eye out for ear hair length. And in case the ear hair grows longer, then you can ask for only a trim on the ear hair. You don't have to get it plugged or anything in case it's not really crazy, but you really need to keep an eye on the length and to maintain length, which will prevent mats happening, because it's, as you can imagine, it's not really comfortable for the doggy at all.